tonight, a special edition of Charlie Rose.
Warren Buffett is the second richest man in the world, worth about $44 billion. He is chairman of the Berkshire Hathaway Corporation. He made headlines around the world on Monday, June 26, 2006, when he announced he was giving $31 billion of his wealth to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Together, they have created a foundation which will have more than $60 billion to give away. It was an act of extraordinary generosity, born out of friendship, shared values, and mutual admiration. I admit it, I am prejudiced about Warren Buffett. He is a friend. He and his family have given me access and time to talk about his life, his business, his values, and his philosophy about everything. We have talked many times since our first interview in 2004 at the annual meeting of Berkshire Hathaway. His is a life worth talking about because of his candor about it and his remarkable intelligence, and yes, his stunning wealth. Warren Buffett owns 31% of Berkshire Hathaway, a company with a stock market value of $140 billion. His share is worth $44 billion. Berkshire Hathaway owns part of some of America's most famous brand names: Coca-Cola, the Washington Post Company, American Express, and Procter & Gamble, and all of Fruit of the Loom, See's Candy, and the Nebraska Furniture Mart. He is the subject of many, many newspaper and magazine stories, and more than 20 books have been written about him. For a man so famous and so rich, Warren Buffett has led a remarkably modest lifestyle in his hometown of Omaha.
Omaha's home. It's always been home, always will be home. A lot of friends are here, but I feel good here. I mean, my kids are going to my grandchildren are now going to the same public high school that my kids went to, my wife went to, my dad went to. I mean, with almost 100 years. And there's a lot of continuity here. It's a great life. You feel like you're part of a community. I live in a house I bought in 1958. You know, that's 46 years. I'm happy there. You know.
You like the house, and so like well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, this office I've been in for 42 years, and it's everything falls into place. I do two things. Call it asset allocation. In other words, we have somewhere between $100 million and $150 million a week coming in to Berkshire, and that's after all the needs of the operating businesses are taken care of. Because if they build plants or anything, that's up to them. But then the remainder comes into Omaha. My job is to allocate that among anything in the world that makes sense to me. I can put it in marketable securities. I can put it in bonds or equities. I can put it in whole businesses. I can sit temporarily with it in cash. But that's my job. That is my sole responsibility. We don't do that by committee. We don't do it by advisors. That's my job. Second job I have, and this is easier if you kind of get the ball rolling, and that's to have talented, high-grade managers running our businesses who are happy running them. So when I buy a business, I'm usually buying the manager with it because I don't know how to run the business. So when somebody comes along and says they want to sell their business, I have to look them in the eye, and I have to decide whether they love the money or they love the business. Now, it's okay to love the money, some, but they have to love the business. They have to have passion for it. Why am I running down here every day, and hardly wait to get to work? It isn't for the money. It's because I get to do my job the way I like to do it. I get to paint on my own canvas. I feel like I'm Michelangelo down here, and I'm doing the Sistine Chapel. Now, nobody else may think so, but they don't say use a little red paint instead of blue paint or something like that. I get to use whatever paint I want, paint whatever I want. I love it. Second thing is that they want applause. I want applause. I mean, I like it when people say that's a good job. And our managers are just the same way. They got a lot of money, most of them, and they want to be treated fairly. So they don't want to be taken advantage of. They want to paint their own painting. They love that, and they get it at Berkshire like no other place. And they want applause. And when they get applause from me, they're getting applause from a knowledgeable observer. I mean, it is not uninformed applause. So. That keeps them, and we've had remarkable success in keeping managers over the years.
Let me just talk for a moment about your skills.
We can do that in a moment.
You think 1 moment's enough?
Yeah, well, I'll stretch it out.
Let's assume we talked about energy and intelligence, and integrity. Let's give those values and skills to you.
Yeah.
All right. You have an extraordinary capacity to focus.
Absolutely. Yep.
You read a lot, and you focus.
Yeah. A lot of people I know that have done well in their own areas focus. In fact, just about the first time I met Bill, we were at a place with 15 people eating dinner, and his dad asked went around the table and asked everybody what they thought the most important ingredient they brought to their game was, and I answered focus, and I saw Bill nodding his head across the room.
So you knew right there we
Yeah,
had
yeah, we were
soulmates.
Yeah, no, it's focus. You know,
And what do we mean by focus?
I mean, just concentrating on what's important. I mean, you have to know your game. Listen, I was lucky. I was born wired a certain way, you know. I didn't have anything to do with it at all. I was born at the right time in the right place. Huge capital markets. America couldn't have been anything like it any place in the world. So here I am wired for it. And by focus, I mean using that wiring, basically, and trying to get it so that there's, you know, fewer flickers here and there and that sort of thing.
He was born on August 30th, 1930. His parents, Howard and Leela, lived on Barker Avenue in Omaha. This is Barker Avenue.
Barker Avenue.
Tell me about this photograph.
Well, that's my mom and dad at 4224 Barker, and that's where I spent the first 5 or 6 years of my life. My dad, until 1931, was working for a bank, and he was selling securities, and then the bank went broke in August of 1931. In fact, just about on my dad's birthday. And at that time, my dad was paying, as I remember, $55 a month on this house. He had no job. He had 2 little kids. I was, 1 year of age at that time. And my grandfather had a grocery store. So there was at least a little food around, but it was a tough time. It was a tough time.
It was the beginning of the Depression.
It was the beginning of the Depression, yeah.
This one is...
That would be my...
That would be...
That was my sister Doris and me together, yeah.
And this one, this has to be...
Yeah, I was big on costumes when I was a kid. My dad would go to New York, and when he came back, he'd usually
Bring a costume.
He'd bring a costume. So I'd be a fireman or a cop or whatever.
Or a cowboy.
Or a cowboy, yeah, right.
Did you have an entrepreneurial spirit? Were you the kind of kid that wanted a paper route and wanted to sell lemonade and wanted to do all those things?
Yeah, I did. I enjoyed it. And many years ago, I read about a study, and I don't know whether the study's any good or not, but somebody was trying to correlate business success with various factors, whether it was your grades in business school or, you know, what your parents did or anything. And it said it correlated best with the age at which you first got into your own business.
And when did you first get into your own business?
Well, I'm not sure exactly, but it was probably when I was maybe 6 or something like that.
Doing what? Do you remember?
Well, I would buy 6 packs of Coke from my grandfather's grocery store for $0.25 and sell them for $0.05 each.
That's a 5-cent profit right
Yeah,
there.
absolutely, absolutely. And I had the whole Coca-Cola company behind me pushing it.
Howard Buffett, his father, was elected to Congress in 1943, and the Buffett family moved to Washington. He was your hero.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because?
You know, just everything about it. I mean, growing up with him, and we were pals, you know, and I never saw him do anything in his whole life that he couldn't put on the front page of a paper.
Why did he get into politics?
Well, he was a man of political ideas, but I don't think he ever had any ambition to get into politics. He was introverted. He basically didn't like to give speeches or anything of the sort, but he had strong ideas about political systems and about the individual
And about service?
And and he had a strong political philosophy and a philosophy of life, and it was religious based to a significant degree, and he was. He thought the government should play a very minor role in people's lives, and to almost an extreme degree. And he may have gotten a little more extreme on it as he went over the years. I didn't agree with him totally on political philosophy, even as I was growing up, and then I grew further from that. But it didn't change my feelings about him.
What do you see in yourself that most reminds you of your father?
Well, I'd certainly, listen, if I could be 3/4 of the man he was, I'd be very pleased with myself.
Why do you say that? Because
Well, I just think he was the best human being I've known.
best human being
Yeah.
you've known. When he came back to Omaha, he met Susie Thompson. The Buffett family knew the Thompson family.
Oh my, yes. They were like this. The parents. The children didn't know each other because Warren and his sisters lived in Washington from the time he was 13.
His father was a congressman.
Right.
So when you first met him,
I first met him. I was going to be his youngest sister's roommate at Northwestern. So I walked into their house, and he was sitting in this chair in the living room, and he made some sarcastic quip. I hadn't even met him. So I made one back. I thought, who is this jerk? And that's how we met, yes.
Here is the story. He chased you, and you were dating other people. He would come over to the house.
Right. Here, my dad...
And sit with your father.
Yeah.
And you were going off on a date.
Right. My dad fell in love with him. Listen, Warren is smarter than you even know. My dad had a mandolin up in the attic. Warren said, "Doc, get out your mandolin and I'll play with you with my ukulele." So they played together. And my father fell in love with Warren. And he kept saying to me, "You don't understand this boy. He has a heart of gold." No pun intended. And that's what went on for quite a while. You know, I mean, but doesn't Warren always get what he wants?
Susie and Warren Buffett were married, and they soon moved to New York to study and work with Ben Graham, a professor at Columbia University. Next to his father, Ben Graham remains an intellectual influence and a hero.
There are half a dozen that had a tremendous influence, and certainly Ben Graham influenced me enormously in terms of giving me the investment framework to go forth. I wouldn't be remotely where I am without Ben Graham.
But Graham gave you the principles.
He gave me the foundation.
And you read the book first.
I read the book.
And said, "I want to meet this guy?"
Yeah, well, that was the way I was. But I wanted, and I didn't understand he was teaching, Charlie. When I read the book, and even when I finished Nebraska, and then I was leafing through a catalog of Columbia, and his name popped out at me, and that's when I wrote and said, "Will you take me?" But I had no notion about that.
Why were you willing to leave Omaha and go to New York? I mean, was it that this guy knows something?
Oh, yeah. No, I wanted to, if I was going to be a disciple, I wanted to see the Messiah.
And you sort of viewed it that way.
Yeah, I did.
In terms of investing.
Sure.
When you read the book, you said to yourself,
I said, "This makes sense."
Makes sense.
It makes sense. Nothing up till then had really made sense.
And the principles are still the same.
Principles are absolutely the same.
Having changed what, though, as you change circumstances?
Well, you just see more ways to apply them, and I mean, the applications come up in different forms, but the principles remain the same.
Help me understand the operative idea about Ben Graham of value investing.
Well, Ben just says, look at a stock not as some thing that wiggles around or is quoted in the paper every day or is up there on a ticker. He says, look at it as a piece of a business. Figure out what the business is worth. If you can't figure out what the business is worth, you've got no business buying the stock. And I'd never thought of it that way. And so I started looking at businesses instead of stock charts and volume and all that kind of thing. And it was amazing what kind of an edge that gave me. And then secondly, he said the stock market is there to serve you, not to instruct you. So you don't look at stock prices as telling you whether you're right or wrong. You're there to take advantage of stock prices when they get out of line with reality. And then thirdly, he said always have a margin of safety. That don't try and drive a 9,800-pound truck across a bridge that says limit 10,000 pounds. Leave yourself some room for error because you don't know everything. So you'll always leave that margin of safety.
Buffett works in this office building with a staff of 16 and a collection of memories. This is Gillette Safety Razor Company.
Right. This goes back to the patent for the razor, going back, I guess, well, this is 70 years ago, roughly, on that particular razor.
And how did Gillette come about, and why did you decide to get involved in Gillette?
Well, Gillette, here's a company that after 100 years of being in the razor and blade business has 70% or so of the value of razors and blades throughout the world. Yeah. Now, when you have that kind of permanent advantage, obviously, with the consumer, it's not going to go away in a few years. And it's not going to go away in decades. I mean, this is a company that really has something.
This meets the Buffett test.
It meets the test. It meets the test. Durable competitive advantage.
Yeah.
Durable competitive advantage.
And all night, as you go to, while you're sleeping, you know.
Well, when I sleep at night, I know that hair is growing on the faces of billions of men around the world, and that hair is growing on twice as many legs of women around the world. But I don't think too much about the women's legs. I wouldn't get to sleep.
Here is the Omaha Royals.
The Omaha Royals. Yep. Maybe 10 or so years ago, maybe a little more even, the owner of the Omaha Royals was going to sell, and they probably moved the team out of town. So at the time, it was the Union Pacific Railroad, and Walter Scott and I bought the team primarily to keep it in Omaha.
And it's still in Omaha?
It's still in Omaha.
And you suit up ever?
Oh yeah, no, they count on me.
Well, I've seen pictures of you in a uniform.
I've started several games, but they seem to pull me after one pitch.
Before the first pitch.
Yeah, right.
We have a change in the starting lineup. Buffett will not be pitching today.
Nobody's gotten a hit off me. That was our first purchase. You can barely read it because the ink has gotten faded.
On the partnership?
This first purchase of Berkshire stock by the partnership in 1962. And this is the trading record of a firm called, at that time, Tweedy, Brown and Riley. Yeah. And they were the brokers I used. A wonderful fellow named Howard Brown bought all my Berkshire for me at this small firm called Tweedy Brown. And then many years later, they pulled out the trading card relating to that first purchase and sent it to me.
This is what?
Well, let's
Tom Osborne is signed this.
Yeah, and Frank Solich too. And that's the record of Nebraska during the Devaney, Osborne, Solich regime.
From 1962 to 2003.
Yeah, it was quite a record.
They won a lot of football games.
They won a lot of football games.
Right. That's a passion, University of Nebraska.
Well, I mean, you're not allowed to reside in Nebraska unless you're a little bit of a fanatic on the subject.
When you take Gates to a game in which they're playing against Washington,
he doesn't really respond very well. But in Nebraska, I mean, when there's a divorce in Nebraska, they don't argue about the kids. They argue about the football tickets.
Who gets the tickets?
Yeah.
All right. Here we have the New York Stock Exchange, and this is, let it be known that Berkshire Hathaway Incorporated, Omaha, Nebraska.
Yeah.
Listed on the New York Stock Exchange.
We had a problem doing that because of the price of our stock and everything. It took a little special action by the exchange, which I appreciated.
Explain that to me.
Well, it's just that they had some round lot requirements and all of that were designed for lower price stocks, and we didn't have the number of 100 share owners that were required at the time. So they redefined it a little bit to allow Berkshire to be.
There are always people who want to know why you've never split the stock.
Well, we don't split the stock because we don't want to encourage the kind of buyer who is excited by stock splits. And this way, it keeps it more of a business atmosphere and less of a day-to-day stock atmosphere around it.
And is there any sense that the people that you want to invest in Berkshire Hathaway, you want them to come in for a long time, and you want them to take seriously the decision to buy Berkshire Hathaway?
We want them to join in a business with us with the intention of holding it forever. Now, all kinds of reasons why they might not, but that's the goal.
All right. Do you check the price of the stock every day?
I probably know about it sometime during the day, maybe at the close, but I'm not checking the price.
And if there's some movement, you're not interested in why there's movement, who might be selling or who might be buying?
It doesn't make any difference.
Doesn't make any difference.
No.
So on this wall, here's Tom Murphy, and you were in a soap opera.
I was in about 4 soap operas, but that's because every time I got invited, they hadn't seen the earlier one. And Susan Lucci was terrific. I mean, she Tom Murphy and I are there, and we couldn't remember our lines or anything, and she carried us through.
Now, you played yourself?
Yeah.
Buffett and Murphy
definitely
show up on the set of All My Children.
Right.
May I introduce my friend Warren Buffett?
Oh, my, I am so thrilled to meet you. I have been such a fan of yours for such a long time. But I must tell you that your photographs just do not do you justice at all, Mr. Buffett.
Please call me Warren.
Well, thank you if you'll call me Erica.
Susan Lucci, the longtime star of that show.
Right.
Now, they paid you for this.
They paid me for this. I tried to negotiate for more, but I didn't have much luck. And you'll notice there's a wardrobe allowance, which they gave me for $10, and that was in 1991. I haven't spent it yet. Someday something will come along.
This suit is not new.
No.
Now, this is funny. This is a story about Gorbachev when he was ousted. Hardliners declare emergency tanks roll into Moscow streets. And the man that they are assuming to be Gennady Yanayev is not, in fact, it is Warren Buffett.
He may be my long-lost twin, I don't know, but this was the day after I took over at Solomon, and I thought some of the comments, they got my picture mixed up, and then there's hardliners declare emergency, vows to overcome crisis, so they had the right captions.
It would have fit for Solomon,
It kind of fit, yeah.
This is you batting against Bob Gibson?
Bob Gibson, right. Yeah, I only play.
You take your life in your own hands, don't you?
I only play against the best.
One of the fastest throwers there's ever been in the history of baseball.
We're friends, but I wasn't sure how far that would carry me.
And so Brokaw sends you a note saying, a copy, but Gibson
may object or something.
May object to something. Yeah. Is baseball?
I've always liked baseball. I mean, I don't follow it the way I used to when I was a kid, but baseball is. I love sports generally.
Everywhere I look, there's you in a uniform. There's a hockey thing over there. Here is a man that you refer to
because of his approach to hitting.
Right.
Represents what to you as a metaphor?
Ted Williams was all about discipline in hitting. He said the most important thing was waiting for the right pitch, and he illustrated in his book, The Science of Hitting. He illustrated that, and you know he looked at hitting as something that he thought about morning, noon, and night. You know, and always was looking for how to do it better. But discipline, he said, waiting for the right pitch is the most important thing in batting.
And you think about morning, noon, and night. Berkshire Hathaway in what way?
Well, we keep waiting for the right pitch, and we're not going to swing at some pitch that some other fellow might like. I mean, if our favorite pitch is 2 inches above the navel, you know, and some other guy likes it, you know, around the letters or a little lower or something, that's fine. But in business, unlike baseball, there are no called strikes. So you can sit there and the pitcher can throw you IBM at 62 or General Motors at 28 and all kinds of things, and nobody's going to call a strike. If you swing at one of those pitches when it comes across Berkshire Hathaway at 7 3/8,
right.
you know, and you miss, it's a strike. But it's a terrific game that way because you can sit there and wait and wait and wait for the right pitch. And there are not many things in life where you get that option.
And that's exactly what you're doing now.
That's what I do now.
I mean,
and I've done it before.
In anticipation of this annual meeting, you have to say to the stockholders, I've been waiting for the right pitch, and I haven't seen it.
That's right. That's right. And some pitch somebody else can hit out of the park, you know, but I don't think I can. You know, that's my problem. But I'm not going to, you know, I'm not going to think I can hit a pitch I can't.
Does it kill you to know that you got $40 billion there, not earning huge interest rates in today's market?
Yeah. Well, I don't like it, but I like it better than swinging and missing. and the problem for most managers is that they've got all these people up in the stands yelling "swing you bum."
Yeah.
You know, but we've got a group of shareholders who not very often yell out "swing you bum."
In fact, they're yelling at swing when you're ready.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
that's the confidence as you develop.
That's
them.
right.
Why did they come to this annual meeting?
I think they have fun. I mean, it's you know, they see people they like. I think they learn more about Berkshire. It's kind of a reunion for many of them, and there's all kinds of little clubs develop and friendships develop out of it. And,
A little shopping on the side.
Oh yeah, shopping on the side, and I
Get to see a free movie.
In the end, that's about it though. We don't give them goodies or anything like that. I mean, they come because they want to come.
And here is Babe Ruth.
Yeah, that's the Hall of Fame. After the second year, minus Ty Cobb, who was late.
Now, this is up here simply because you love baseball.
Well, I just think those are the champs.
Yeah.
They were the first people put in the Hall of Fame.
And Ty Cobb.
He was late for the picture. And whoever took it wouldn't wait.
But he actually knew your great friend Carol Loomis.
He dated her. He dated her. Right. Now, bear in mind,
a bit of her history we didn't know.
To be honest about it, I mean, he was 40 or some years older than she was at the time, but his nephew called her and said, my Uncle Ty has been watching you on television. She was on a quiz show, and he would very much like to take you out. She went a couple of times.
She said it's worth getting to know Ty Cobb.
Right.
So here's when Tiger Woods is what to Warren. He says, I thoroughly enjoyed our day together and look forward to doing it again. And your friend Tiger. Was he caddying for you?
No, I was caddying for him. And if I had my back here, on the back of it, it says Woods. I mean, I was a very effective caddy.
I see.
And then on the 18th hole, he said, now, Warren, he said, I understand you play this game. And I said, not the game you're talking about, Tiger. He said, we're going to play the 18th hole, and we're going to play it for serious money. And I said, Tiger, all money is serious to me. He said, no, we're going to play it for $5. I said, well, that's serious money. And then he got down on his knees. He played me on his knees. And
so every stroke he hit was on his knees.
he was all the way down on his knees.
And how did he do?
Well, he hit his drive about 260. And
on his knees?
On his knees. I mean, it's unbelievable. Straight down.
I mean, it's out like this when he's
I mean, he didn't even adjust himself after he was down. And so I went over and I handed him $5. And then I said, Tiger, I think you're forgetting something. And he said, what's that? I said, the caddy gets 10% of your winnings. I'm still waiting for the 50 cents.
You had one day of caddying for him.
He's a terrific guy. He is one terrific guy, I can tell you that. It was part of a charity deal, and I mean, he went all out to deliver value to the people that bought the right to play with him.
And as Jack Nicklaus says, he plays a game I'm not familiar with.
I remember when he said that, yeah.
If you go to Omaha, Nebraska to see Warren Buffett, one of the things you might end up doing is going to Garage Restaurant, one of his favorites. We did that, and we talked with him about a typical day.
Walk through a day for me.
Day is, you wouldn't believe the day. I mean, I come down and
At what time?
Well, I do some reading. I usually read a lot of the papers at home. So I get up around 6:45.
Physical paper on online?
Mostly on regular paper, but I also click on some things.
Yeah. You have a favorite list too.
Yeah, right. I've even got the Charlie Rose show up there. I want to see who's on here. I really do. But so I get up about 6:45 usually.
Yeah.
But I may get to the office at 9 o'clock. No, I may get there at 8, depending on what's going on. But I have no schedule to speak of. I mean, you know, here's my date book. You know, just take a look. You know, I mean,
Can I do this? This is not jam-packed with appointments.
8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. I just don't do it. So I don't want to live that way.
You decided that a long time ago.
A long time. I decided that back when I was delivering papers, you know, when I was a kid. I mean, I knew what I enjoyed and what I didn't enjoy. I like delivering papers. I'd still be glad to deliver a paper on. But I don't want to be head of IBM or General Motors or...
Well, why not? Because
your life is too taken up by things that you
Meetings
don't really
and
have choice
agendas
about.
that are
Yeah,
not-
I just don't want to do it.
but go ahead, take me 9:45. You get in at whatever
And
time.
then I do more reading. I read 5 newspapers a day.
Yeah.
I read all kinds of annual reports and magazines and 10Ks and 10Qs. And so I would say I spend 75% of the day, at least, maybe 85% reading. And I spend the rest on the phone. And I make I buy or sell any of the stocks or bonds or foreign currencies. I mean, but that doesn't take much time because we're not doing that on a broad scale. And then I go home and I play bridge or read some more.
You go home at what, 5, 6 o'clock?
Yeah, although that can be. There is no. I don't like being
You have no
structured.
schedule.
I don't like to be structured.
If you want to go home at 3, you go home at 3. If you
I'll
want to
go
go home
home
at 7, you go home at 7.
Exactly.
And still read more
Yeah, usually, or play bridge now more
online.
online. I would pay. And I don't mind saying this to the people that own it because they don't know how to get it from me. I would pay $5 million a year for the ability to play online bridge 12 hours a week. It's worth it to me. You know, if I compare it to the cost of a second home, which wouldn't mean a thing to me to speak of, or
Or a
the cost
yacht
of a
or
boat
whatever,
or whatever it
right,
might be. I mean,
What
if
means
you
something
do-
to you is to be able to play.
If you deliver 12 hours of enjoyment playing with my sister in Carmel or whoever it may be, you know, doing it in a few seconds, clicking on great, you know, interface on it, I'd pay it, but they can't figure it. So I'm paying about $95 a year.
Principal joy you get is that and bridge and friends. Those 3
Yeah,
things.
and the bridge and the friends intersect, of course. And I mean, this Saturday I'll play with Bill, and at 10 o'clock my time, 8 o'clock his time, we'll play for a couple of hours.
And you always win.
No, no. I tell you so, but you check with him, and then
That's exactly,
there we go.
exactly what I would do. The notion of investing for you. What are you looking at for when you read? You're looking for an interesting company? You're looking for...
Yeah, I'm looking for a business I can understand. I'm like a basketball coach, and if I walk down the street, the first thing I look for is 7-footers. You know, and now once I find the 7-footer, I still got to figure out, you know, whether he's coordinated and whether I can keep him in school and all those things. You know.
Right.
But if some guy comes up and he says, you know, he's 5'6", and he says, you know, wait till you see me handle the ball and all that, I'm not looking for those. So I leave.
You want to look up at your players.
Yeah, and when I first started, I used to find a lot of 7-footers. Harder to find 7-footers now because my universe isn't as big.
Right.
But I look for things I can understand. I think I know what the economics of the business will look like 5 or 10 or 20 years from now. And it doesn't mean that, you know, I understand what a computer does, but I don't know who is going to be making lots of money off of computers 10 years from now, any more than I knew who was going to be making a lot of money off of television sets back in 1960. Turned out nobody was.
You've always taken the position that really you don't want to make speeches except to business students and to kids.
Just the students, yeah.
What's the idea?
The idea is that they listen, and you may change some lives. I mean, the things I heard when I was 20 from somebody I wanted to listen to changed my behavior in ways. And the people I listened to at age 74, you know, I want to be entertained and all that, you know. But I'm not going to change anything. They're not going to change anything. So if I talk to a bunch of 50 or 60-year-olds, basically they want to be entertained and they want predictions. But if I talk to 20-year-olds, they ask, or 25-year-olds, they ask me the questions. It's what's on their mind, and they really get to what's on their mind, and they listen, and you can see it in their faces, and then they write me afterwards, and so it changes some lives. The biggest thing we talk about, and I know it resonates with them, because a lot of them are thinking they ought to go into this line or that line because it'll look good on their resume, or they get a little more experience. I tell them if you wait till you're 80 to do something you like, I say that's like saving up sex for your old age. I mean, you want to have a passion for what you're doing. Why go through life, waiting for the big moment when you're 82?
Preparing for something else.
Yeah, right. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. I tell them, basically, unless Shirley MacLaine's right, you only live once, and we go from there.
No evidence yet that she's right.
I hope she's right.
I do too.
Talking to students about life and business is one of Warren's passions. He does it more and more these days. From all over the world, they make a pilgrimage to Omaha. One such appearance that was filmed for public television was at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, where he appeared with his friend Bill Gates.
Hi, my name is Nicole Brockhoft, and I am a senior business administration major here at the university. And I was just wondering, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given, and how has it impacted your personal or professional lives?
I think that, I got an awful lot of good advice from my dad, and he didn't lay it on me. I mean, he just, you picked it up from him, but there was never any of this, do this, do that type of thing at all. But I think he really taught me that it's more important in terms of what's on your inner scorecard than your outer scorecard. I mean, some people get in a position where they're thinking all of the time of what the world's going to think of this or that instead of what they themselves think about. And if your inner scorecard, if you're comfortable with that, I think you're going to have a pretty happy life. And I think the people that strive too much for the outer scorecard sometimes find that it's a little hollow when they get all through.
Hello,
Hi.
My name's Kim Martin. I'm a senior finance major here at the university. My question is, how do you instill ethical leadership throughout your organization? And to begin with, how do you know that the management one level below you is making decisions that would parallel your own?
We have all the money we need. We'd like to have more, but we can afford to lose money. But we can't afford to lose reputation, not a shred of reputation. And therefore, I ask the managers, them to judge every action they take, not just by legal standards, although obviously that's the first test, but also by the test, what I call the newspaper test. How would they feel about any given action if they knew it was to be written up the next day in their local paper, to be read by their family, by their friends, by their neighbors, written by a smart but kind of unfriendly reporter? And if it passes that test, it's okay. And I tell them if anything is close to the lines, it's out. And they can always call me if they wanted to check something. But if they call me, there's something wrong with it probably anyway. And that's about it.
In Microsoft's case, our top management team, the majority of them joined us right after whatever degree they got, if any.
I should mention that I am the only college grad up here. I mean,
You've made a point to see almost any group of students who will come to Omaha. Yeah. What is it about that? What do you get out of it, and what do you think they get out of it?
Well, I like teaching. I mean, I taught my first class when I was 21, and I just enjoy it. I enjoy the interaction. I mean, it's fun to sit there and have them throw questions at me, and and so I've enjoyed doing it, and I do as much of it as I can.
Where is their curiosity?
Where is it?
Yeah. What is it what questions do they ask?
A lot of that. Well, they're business students, a lot of them, and so they're interested in markets and business and all that, but they're also interested in their own lives, and that's when it gets the most interesting. I mean, they ask me a lot of personal questions. I answer them, and it's interesting to know what's on their mind because they're groping. I mean, they're looking for the road they're going to take in life. And a big part of that is the business and making some money and all of that. But that isn't the only part of the road. And we have good discussions about that, and I enjoy it. And
about values, about the notion of friendship and the notion of...
Yeah, and how you're going to feel about yourself when you're 70 years old, and what, looking back, what you'll feel good about and how you get there. I mean, I want them to reverse engineer their life, basically. To
look at what you would like for it to be at the end and ask yourself,
and work backwards.
How do I work?
Sure.
Yeah. Buffett also tells students about the inherent advantages of where you were born.
Let's imagine that it's 24 hours before you're born, and a genie comes, and he says, Charlie, you really look like you've got good judgment, so I'm going to give you an enormously important task. I'm going to let you design the world into which you're going to be born in 24 hours. And you say to the genie, appreciate the responsibility, you picked the right guy, but what's the catch? I mean, I've been around a little. The genie says, there's just one catch. before you go out into that world, after you've designed the rules, you're going to go over to that big barrel over there, and there's 6 billion tickets in it, and you're going to pull a ticket out. And that ticket may say male, female, it may say rich, poor. What kind of a world do you want to have, not knowing what tickets you're going to get? Now, I call that participating in the ovarian lottery. I got a ticket that said United States. You did too. I got a ticket that said smart about certain things. All of that helped me. But I say you should design a political system that will deliver lots of goods and services to people, but then we'll search for fairness in how those are distributed. So I come into this and abundance is just showered on me because I have a talent. Now, Gates says if I'd been born at some other time or some other place, a long time ago, I'd been some animal's lunch because I don't run very fast and I can't climb trees. So I'd be talking about allocating capital. That damn thing, dinosaur would be coming right at me.
And he offers a profound definition of success.
Let me tell you a story. It gets there. I have a friend here in Omaha. She's my wife's best friend. 60-odd years ago, she was in Auschwitz. She's a Polish Jew. The whole family did not come out. If you talk to her today and you ask her about friendship, she would say she would define it as who would hide me. She says that's the bottom line. Now, I would say that if you get to be my age, or much younger for that matter, and you have a lot of people who will hide you, the people who you want to have hide you would do so, you're going to feel very good about your life. It's the real test. I mean, it's a referendum on how you've lived your life, and you can't fake the ballot box on it. I mean, it's all important, and you certainly want to feel that way with your kids, but it's wonderful when you feel that way with your business associates and those who work around you.
Friends, real friends, are important to Warren Buffett, and here are 3 of the closest. Tom Murphy, former CEO of ABC Capital Cities, Charlie Munger, vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, and Don Keough, chairman of Allen & Company.
Warren would never take advantage of anybody. He's never looking to make a bad deal for the other guy. And he's completely honest and fair with everybody.
It's the nature of life that, as the old Germans say, you're too soon old and too late smart. And anybody that helps you get smarter a little earlier enormously improves your life. And all we do is prove these simple old adages like that German saying. Warren got me smarter in some ways a little earlier, and that helped me.
How close did you live to the Buffetts?
Well, I lived across the street.
Across the street?
Across the street. I bought a house there in around 1959. A 3-story house, brick house, a tile roof, paid $27,500 for it, and there was a young fellow living across the street in another house, good big house. He paid $30,000, I think, for his. His name was Warren Buffett. He wasn't nobody knew who he was. He was a nice guy. I think he and Susie had 3 kids. We had 4, working on 5. And, I got to know him. He wasn't easy to know because you didn't see much of him. But my kids did. Of course, the real story is that he came across the street one day and he said, "Don, I love your kids." I said, "I know." And he said, I was thinking about college, getting kids through college isn't easy. I said, "Warren, I'm working on grade school right now. I'll get around to college a little later." He said, "I've started a little fund. People putting a little money into it, and if you gave me, say, $10,000, I think I could build that up into something." Well, Charlie, I didn't give it to him for 2 reasons. One, I didn't have it. I could have borrowed it from my father. But I went into Mickey and said, "Can you imagine giving $10,000 to a guy who doesn't get up and go to work in the morning?" That was one of my great decisions of my life.
If you had given him that $10,000.
Don't ask.
Yeah, probably over $400 million.
Now $400 million.
Mm-hmm.
You've talked.
We're still friends, incidentally.
Susie Buffett, Warren's beloved wife, unexpectedly died in 2004, 1 month after she sat down with me for her only television interview and talked about their unique relationship.
According to him, to me, he would not have made it without you. You gave him something.
Well, I feel really good about that, Charlie, because whoever you are in this life, you don't want to think you wasted a lot of your energy and love and time on something useless. Warren is phenomenal. And I felt that the best thing I could give him was unconditional love. And I have. And he says, you're like a little watering can, you know, and I'm the flower. and how could you not feel good about that?
He made you feel needed.
Mm-hmm, very much
And you
so.
knew he loved you.
Oh, I don't know that anyone's ever been more loved. It fits me to be needed and to know that what I have to give is the right thing. And if you have two people, we just have a lot of love and respect for each other, and that's never changed.
And I can't help but relate it to art, because any great novelist, painter, musician is going to need the room to allow that to grow, and something's going to grow if it's in the right soil. And my mother gave him the soil. That's really what it is.
Did you get more mothering than fathering because he was so into reading and...
Yeah. I mean, my mother was there, and she was there and more present in the sense that my dad was, you know, sitting in his office or room doing a lot of reading.
Why did you move away from Omaha?
I'll tell you, I am a person who likes a private life, and I thought, you know, I would like to have a place where I could have a room of my own. It would be nice. Because you see, physical proximity to Warren doesn't always mean that he's there with you. I mean, you can, there hasn't been any change in anything, because, which he had to, it took him a while to figure it out, but he figured it out. I said, I'm not leaving you, because I'll be wherever you want me when you want me. But most of the time, when you're in the same house he is or whatever, he's up reading, and that's why I learned to have my own life. We were two parallel lines, but very connected when he was open to connecting.
You just got this sense that there were two people that were very much in love, but were sort of becoming disconnected in a certain way, because my mom loved life, and my dad loved what he's always loved, you know, his work.
He loved his work.
Absolutely. And so I think what my mom was starting to see coming was this idea of, you know, I don't want to be Mrs. Warren Buffett in Omaha, because she doesn't, she just can't think of herself that way. She's an independent, strong-willed, giving human being that needs to be connected to a lot more things than what Omaha, I think, would have to offer after her kids were gone. I mean, she really gave us and my dad everything.
Are you responsible for Astrid?
Well, yeah. I mean, well, I'll tell you. I call her Aya. That's a term of endearment.
You call her what?
Aya.
Aya.
It's a term of endearment. When I was singing at the French Cafe in Omaha, Aya was the maitre d', or the woman that met you at the door, and she is a very helping, giving person. And between sets, she would always bring me tea, and we'd sit and talk, and we became very good friends. Then when I moved to San Francisco, I mean, it would have been all right for some other person, but Warren can't find the light switch, and it's probably my fault, but I don't take all the fault for that. So then I called Astrid. I said, Astrid, will you take Warren, make him some soup, go over there and look after him, because he's not going to make it. I mean, he's different than a lot of guys, because we see each other all the time and we do things, but he just can't No, he
Function.
can't function, yeah.
So she went over and
Yeah, and
stayed.
stayed. And that was, she's done me a great favor, let me tell
She
you.
took care of your man for you.
She did. And she takes great care of him. And he appreciates it, and I appreciate it. She's a wonderful person.
When they go out to dinner and everything.
Yeah,
and
they just do.
He's a companion.
They do what they do,
He's
you know?
yeah.
This is veal parmesan.
Oh,
It's good.
wow.
Oh, this is the reason he comes.
The potatoes.
The hash browns.
Hash browns, yeah.
That's the biggest piece of meat I've ever seen on a single.
They were really good friends. I mean, I think it's true. They loved each other. I know Astrid loved my mother, and my mother adored her. Yeah.
So your mother's death was tough for her, too.
It was very hard for her. Yes.
But even more important for her to be strong, because
Yeah.
it's one of those things that's so strange it works.
That's exactly right. I mean, I always think, this is one of those things that unless you're in it, you may not get it, but it works and it's great.
She knew that my dad would need somebody, certainly. And I don't know, or I don't remember the exact details, but I do know that there was essentially you mind making him chicken soup, and one thing led to another, basically, which is phenomenal. I mean, it is it's extraordinary how that worked out, I think, for everybody.
He was devastated by Susie's death.
Oh, that's an understatement. Yeah.
Couldn't even get out of bed.
Well, he did get out of bed. I was proud of him. I didn't know if he'd be able to get out of bed for a few months, but he did.
I mean, he was
Yeah.
just, because it was so sudden.
It was a huge shock. I mean, my mother, she got sick in October of 2004, went through this really awful operation and very difficult radiation and recovery, and was doing really well. It was slow, but she was doing really well. And she'd had an MRI, I think, just a few days before she died. And she was very excited. She was doing great. And
didn't die from cancer, died from a stroke.
no, she didn't die from the cancer.
I think that for any of us, it was hard to imagine her ever being gone. And I'm sure that's probably natural.
He said to me he thought he would go first.
I think we all thought that. I mean, I would have said the same thing if you'd asked me that question. And I don't know why that is, but she was a true matriarch of the family. And so I think we just, for some reason, we felt that way. And for not any logical reason, but that was just, and I've never asked Susie or Peter how they felt, but I mean, that would have been my answer to the question, is that I just thought that she would have been around towards the end. And I think that, he's still adjusting to it. I mean, it probably takes years to adjust
5 years,
to it,
he said, I'll be the same. He told me, 5 years from now, I'll feel the same way.
Yeah, and that's probably true.
Can't talk about it, though.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, she was something very special.
Has he changed?
I think he has a little bit. He's never too busy or uninterested, which is fantastic. And that has only increased. I think that's the biggest thing over time, and specifically since my mom's death.
That he's more available?
Just greater interest in being in touch.
Yeah.
My show was on the Mall in Washington when the Smithsonian opened their National Museum of the American Indian. And I called him up and I said, normally I'd call my mom and I'd tell her how excited I was, and then she'd call you and tell her how excited I was. So I'm calling you and telling you, because she's not here anymore.
He has said that there's nothing more important in life than to have someone you love who you know loves you back.
Well, he would know that with her. There's no question about it.
This is a remarkable woman.
Yep.
And the pictures of her, every picture I always see of Susie, she's smiling.
It's going to be hard to talk about.
I know, but you got to talk to me about it because she talked about you.
Charlie, I'd like to talk about, but I can't.
There's no finer human being than who he is. So I overlooked the money.
2 years later, Warren Buffett decided to give $31 billion to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and $6 more billion to family foundations. What surprised you about the reaction? Then I'll tell you what surprises me.
Well, it just surprised me that there was so much reaction, to tell you the truth.
The whole thing. But
Yeah.
when you think about it, I mean, it has so much drama that the second richest person wants to give his money to the first richest person.
I can see that angle, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that makes it theater.
Yeah, if it was the 20th or something like that, it wouldn't have had the same impact, yeah.
I mean, and it's so far ahead of everybody else that it's
Yeah.
just, you know, it's that makes it. The other thing that surprises me.
We haven't heard from the Sultan of Brunei, incidentally.
Yes, exactly. Where is he? The other thing is everybody asks about the kids as if somehow the kids are going to be pissed off. It is the most surprising thing to me that somehow, and to know your kids and how much they love you and what a great family it is, it's like a thought never occurred. Yet everybody wonders, what about the kids?
They think it's the best thing that's ever happened. 2 of the 3 kids have told me in the past, I set up these small foundations 7 or 8 years ago for them, and they've added a little. They have told me they would rather have me give more money to the foundation than to give that same money to them. They are more. They'd say they don't need money, you know, and they consider themselves ungodly blessed, and they love working with the foundation. That literally 2 of the 3 have said, "Come up to me," you know, at a Christmas time when they thought I might have been adding to the foundation. They said, "Don't give money to me. Give the money to the foundation."
You also had a wonderful marriage.
Right.
Has the things that have happened since 2004 given you a sense to put all that in context? And
no, it's always tough, Charlie.
Yeah. But this, in a sense, it seems to me, and I've said this on a previous conversation we had here at this table, is so in touch with the spirit.
Yeah, it's the right thing to do, and Susie would have thought it was the right thing to do.
Yeah. When you think about the future, is it just continuing to paint the picture?
Absolutely. It doesn't get any better than this. I mean, I don't know how long you could do it, but you know, you're just plain lucky in life if you get to do something that you love doing with people that you love being around.
Tomorrow, how Warren Buffett turned a $9 per share investment into a company worth $90,000 a share.